Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education regular meeting of June 27th, 2024. Let's all stand for the pledge, please. Thank you. Item number 3, standing approval items, acceptance of agenda. Do we have any additions or deletions? Seeing none, agenda is approved as presented. Item number 3.2, approval of minutes. Can I have a recommendation, please? Mrs. Cook?
Resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the following minutes, June 13th, 2024 regular meeting.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Mrs. Anderson, can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 4, public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, a person may address the board on an agenda or non-agenda item by completing a note card located inside the boardroom and place the card in the basket prior to the citizen public comment period. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. If you need more time, you are offered a second opportunity to address the board at the end of the meeting with an additional 3 minutes. Please address the board as a whole and not individually. Public comment is not intended for the exchange of dialogue. This is a time for members of the public to express their views. We are paying attention to your comments and appreciate them. However, school board members do not respond to public comment during the meeting. Questions that arise from public comment shall be referred to the superintendent or their designee for review, study, and possible future response. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. I have Jessica Spencer.
Hi, thank you for hearing me today. I'm Jessica Spencer. I'm a parent of a almost first grader at Oak Ridge. I want to thank you for hearing me today. I'm an avid gardener and composter when that one lets me. I substitute for the district. I worked for a school garden program in my last full-time position. We served 4 Title I schools with 2.6 acres of garden space. I come from a teacher family, and I understand the dedication required to create great schools. Since the beginning of the school year, I've been involved in the PTA-run garden at Oak Ridge, and I volunteered composting and recycling cart at lunch, part of the Michigan Green Schools program sponsored by Molly Mangum. And I look for more of these projects, and the more I see teachers, students, and parents working on them across the district already. When I looked for information from the school district, I found the strategic plan with a few lines about exploring sustainable options. And it seems to me like it's an opportunity for increased district engagement. To help us improve the efficiency of the projects that are already underway across the district. By pooling resources and with more interconnected planning across the district, we can do a lot more. I want everyone here to know today that all of Royal Oak schools this year were Michigan Green Schools, which means there's teacher sponsors with student, parent, and caregiver support that are already dedicated to sustainability across the district. In part because of these efforts, I understand there's a composting and recycling plan underway for the whole district, supported by Angela Fox, and I am really excited about it, but I think we need to keep going. I can see gardens with food and native species in our schools. They would fulfill several parts of the strategic plan goals 2 and 3 with outdoor classrooms, mental health support, strengthening community ties, and increased hands-on inquiry-based learning. It could also be a lot of opportunities for IB projects. They would fulfill the district's mission to, quote, develop growth-minded students who can adapt in a dynamic world as they learn. The future is not just AI and computers, it's mushroom plastics and carbon capture technology and climate-resilient urban planning. The Great Lakes region is set to be a top U.S. climate refugee destination, and our kids need to be ready for that future. Most American children have some form of climate anxiety, and responsible waste management and school gardens can show them that we care about what they care about. I asked the board to utilize the existing green teams that are already across the school district. and to use the Michigan Green Schools program as a roadmap to sustainability. The resources are already there. Let's use them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Claudine Goldecki?
Hi, thank you. My name's Claudine Gedeke. I'm a parent of a 6th and 11th grader in the district. A little over a year ago, I started the lunchtime composting program at Keller. We have about 10 parents on our volunteer team, 10 dedicated parents, and it takes a total of about 80 plus hours a month to run this program and to keep everything neat and tidy and not to put any more work on the custodians. So it's a wonderful project that we're doing. It's a great undertaking. If you've ever had to find volunteers for an event, you know that 80 hours a month is not something to sneeze at. So we're doing that every day at lunch at Keller. We even involved the students in a student compost club this year. So they're assisting us, they're learning our process, what goes on in the building in order to get these items, food waste, trays, milk cartons composted every day. We did a few little extra activities with them, fun activities to engage them this year, which was really great. They're super into it. That's probably the best part of doing this, is watching the students just care so much. We've obviously attracted the ones who, care for the planet, and watching them every day be passionate about it and want to do more is really, truly inspiring. I would like to ask the district to take more of an active role in these green initiatives. As Jess mentioned, there's a lot going on. I think parents and students have already said, this is what we want, and teachers too. We have tremendous teacher support at Keller. In fact, they love having us in the lunchroom just as extra adults around to kind of keep things, cool. So I'm just asking the district to really take an active role in the work that students, parents, and teachers are already doing across the district, to seek out funding for perhaps a dedicated person at the district level who could coordinate these efforts. A lot of times I see as a PTA parent, when a parent leaves, their child moves on to the next level, some projects go away. So I would hate to see that happen with these great green initiatives we have going. So in Royal Oak, we're educating IB learners every single day to be internationally minded, to be aware of stewardship for the planet. So let's just keep it going. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Item number 5. 5.1, Superintendent, Mrs. Fitzpatrick.
Oh, thank you very much. We have a couple of things. As was said by some of the parents speaking this evening, we do have a number of initiatives going and starting, and we're, I understand, having at least one meeting this summer with some volunteers have already raised their hand. And as part of the district initiatives, we would want to make sure that it's equitable across all of our schools. And so that's really the job for me and my team and the principals, to make sure that all of our schools are trained. Mike Jacobs just presented to our administrative team last week on these initiatives. He gave us some wonderful statistics, which Amy Murphy will be putting in some district publications upcoming about initiatives we've already embarked upon, and then others that are to come, including the composting and the ability even to harvest that compost and sell it as fundraisers for our school. So it's a pretty cool project, and I'm eager to hear more about the other initiatives that we might be able to participate in. So I think that's all really good news, and I think we're headed in the right direction, and we are committed to keeping that going. It's been a very busy week, as you've probably noted. Tonight is our night to approve a budget for the school district, which by law we need to do by the 1st of July. We've had several groups working on behalf of public schools in Michigan, advocating in Lansing. I've made a few trips this spring, and I've been in pretty consistent communication with those that represent our district as well as the district where I live. The budget is not organized in the way we had hoped for, and at a very last minute, just before coming in this meeting, I read a memo released by Governor Whitmer's office that she has signed the budget moving forward for next year. The numbers are presented in a very broad way with some nice descriptions, but for us in schools, that really means what account, what type of grant, how is it coming into the district, and are there certain restrictions on it for how we can use those dollars. So we still have work to do, and I will again applaud Ms. Sabella and her team and our cabinet and administrative team and this board really for scrutinizing the budget in the wake of federal and state dollars dwindling after COVID relief funds now are going away, and then really protecting those programs in the district that we want to protect, but it may shift a bit given the new information we learned as late as just before this meeting. So we will commit to a budget tonight, and we also will commit to take in every detail of this new budget that our legislators have approved for us and see what that means for Royal Oak Schools. So that's a bulk of tonight's meeting, and I, again, just want to, thank everyone for all the input that we had. I think we did a very good job with what we knew at the time, and we'll just keep that information flow going throughout the summer months before school begins. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5.2, curriculum and instruction, Dr. Ioannis.
Thank you, Ms. Van Heitzma. I want to bring your board's attention to item 5.2.1, our Sex Education Advisory Committee bylaws for your approval. I wanted to take a minute to thank all the members that are on that committee that really helped us get on the right track with having these bylaws put in place, and we have that here tonight for your approval, item 5.2.1.
Do we have any recommendation? Mrs. Cook?
Resolved, the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the Sexual Education Advisory Committee bylaws as presented in the board packet.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Ms. Yusinski? Any discussion? Mr. Jaworski?
I don't know if, I suppose this is the place to do this. My questions are on a couple of the articles here, particularly Article E, and it is going to be Section 1. My thought on this, and this came from committee, correct?
Yes, correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we could ask that the committee reconsider or make changes?
It really depends on what that is. There are some things that are in these bylaws that must exist for sex education advisory committees. Others were our decisions, but most of what's in the bylaws is what we need to do to follow the statute. So it depends on what the concern is and whether we can consider a change or not.
Okay. So my concern is my thought and my desire for this section here, Article E, Section 1, that the board ourselves would interview the members appointed to that committee as they could apply and come in and we could choose those people as opposed to that having to go through your office. Mrs. Patrick, I think may actually make it easier for you.
We'll consider that and take it back to the committee. Yes.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is to approve as presented, correct?
It is.
Okay.
Ms. Yusinski?
Yeah, I do actually have a quick question. Just the phrase advisory board, is that something that the state dictates for us? Like, that's just what we call it? I just wasn't sure, because I just feel like there are implications about like voting power, right? Over like a board versus a committee. But I just wasn't sure about the name.
I can give a little bit of insight on that.
Yeah,
So
thanks.
we had some team members on the committee meet with the Oakland Schools representative, and she really got us in the right direction as far as getting these bylaws in place. And we were living in a space before without them, and so kind of it felt good to get on the right path. And this was a draft document that she sent us. So I think as a committee, we felt like the title of it was appropriate and fit. And we spent some time in that committee, kind of the members talking about different hiccups that might come from these types of bylaws, but we feel like the draft version that we had here is definitely getting us in the right direction. So,
Okay, yeah. Thanks for that clarification.
You're
I
welcome.
know that there were lots of experts
Yes,
on
yep,
the committee.
yep.
So, yeah.
Ms. Fitzpatrick?
Just as a point of clarification, so this committee, advisory board committee, has existed for a very long length of time within our district. It isn't new. What's new to it are the bylaws that help govern it, which again, as I said, come out of the statute and function in a way that gives the board more information for those that join us, and then it isn't institutional knowledge dependent, it is in writing. So to have these bylaws passed, I think is, I agree with Dr. Yonis, is a very good thing there. It is not a Board of Education committee. So we do have Board of Education committees for curriculum, for policy, and others, but this is an advisory committee for the district for the purpose of sex education curriculum. It's not a Board of Education committee, but it does have a board member on it. So it's a little different too from, I don't want the word board to be confused with this Board of Education as a subcommittee of you. That's all.
Just as a question, how many participants are on the committee, or how many members of the committee?
I can get you an exact number tomorrow, but I believe 10 to 11. We do have some requirements that we have to have specific types of people in place, and they are on the committee, but sometimes not always attending. But I can get you the official numbers and roles, or specific roles that we have to have in place for each to meet some of the requirements. And we have the people established, but their attendance sometimes is not always 100%, but we're still able to continue if we have some components of that group there.
Thank you for clarifying. Okay, thank you. Do we roll call, Mrs. Anderson?
Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Alexander?
No.
Trustee Jaworski?
No.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item 5.3, Finance, Facilities, and Bond, Mrs. Abella.
Hi, good evening. Before I get started, I wanted to introduce two members of my staff this evening. I've written to the board a couple of times that we have a resident from Oakland Schools with us for the next 8 months, and that's Autumn Rakosi. She's with us. And then alongside that residency program with Oakland Schools, we had the ability to use have some of our own staff members work within that cohort and learn right along with those residents. And Daisy Ostich is our district accountant, so I just wanted to welcome them to the meeting this evening. That was one of the elements of this program, was to attend at least one of our board meetings to see how we operate at these meetings. I thought tonight was a great example, since it's all about money. Well, not all, but a lot about money. So 5.3.1 and 5.3.3 on tonight's agenda are the amended and original budgets for the 4 funds that we are legally obligated to pass budgets. That's the general fund, the community service fund, the food service fund, and the student activity fund. And you'll remember that we talked about the debt retirement fund last meeting 2 weeks ago, because those were also millages that we needed to pass for that L4029 that went on the taxes. So we reviewed all 5 of those previously. We're reviewing them again tonight before we pass them. And so I just wanted to point out those were the ones that were legally obligated to pass. We've talked about this before many times, finance and facilities. I appreciate all your input as well as we've worked on this budget over the last couple of months, whether it was our sticky note pads or through presentations, but I think this has been a really good budget process for our district this year. So nothing's really changed on this slide, but we can go through it really quick. We were budgeting student enrollment to be flat, PA 152, which is the hard caps on our medical plans for our employees, was going up 0.01%. It's actually going up 0.02, but because the school year and the medical year are different, it only goes up 0.01% for the school year, which is about $10,000. The retirement rates for MIP serves, the 147A, have not been published yet, so they were not included in the budgets for the 24-25 school year. And then the collective bargaining agreements, for the most part, are settled. ROASA had a wage reopener for this year, which Mr. Walensky and I have been meeting with ROASA, but not settled yet. So those increases, ROASA, which is the administrators, about $158,000. The ROEA, which is the teachers union, $2.1 million. ROASA, which is our secretarial and para unit, $409,000. So that's just steps. ROSPA, which is our psychologist unit, is $23,000, and non-rep, which is everybody else who didn't fit into one of those groups, about $113,000. Contracted services are our third-party providers. Transportation is Durham. So all of these contracts are also in force for the 24-25 school year, about $39,000. Maintenance, custodial, and grounds is ABM, which is about $71,000. SafeEd, our security that are within the Royal Oak Middle School and Royal Oak High School, about $8,000. And Oakland Schools Technology, $10,000. So we talked a little bit about programs, additions, and deletions. So the items that are included in tonight's budgets are the 2 FTE for the English language development teachers that are required. It's about $210,000 addition to our budget. 2 new ASD elementary classrooms due to caseload numbers. So this $200,000 includes the special ed FTE, the cost reimbursement. So when you say that looks a little different than the 2 FTEs added for ELD, it's because we know what money we're going to get back in those additional things. And these 2 classrooms do include the classroom paras that are also required along with the classroom teachers. 2 DK teachers, they were previously in a grant. We're not able to put them in there anymore, so they've been added to the general fund, $210,000. An additional ROMS assistant principal, about $185,000. And then we have reduced 2 K-5 classrooms due to class sizes. And then, so we've reduced 3, added 1, so that's a -2 overall total. So just as a reminder, we're starting where we ended the 23-24 year. And when I say that, it's where we were in the last amendment. Because as I show you the final amendment, these are because I know we have some cost savings as we finalize the year. Because tomorrow's the last day of the fiscal year. So we know where maybe things didn't come in. Did you have a question? I'm so sorry.
I actually did have a question. If you can provide clarification, the salary amount or the compensation amounts that are listed here are salary and fringe benefits.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to provide that clarification.
Yes,
We have
thank you.
Audience here. Thank you.
Yes. So that would be a comprehensive employee cost. So we're starting at a structural deficit of the current school year of $1 million. So all of those items that I just ran over, plus the $1 million where we were starting, we're at a $4.5 million impact of known items moving forward. The things that are outstanding are the state budget, sort of. Mrs. Fitzpatrick just talked about that. The governor signed that today. We saw that press release 15 minutes before we walked into this meeting. We're not able to digest all of those numbers yet. So we're going to take a little look at that. Contract negotiations, as I mentioned, for ROS, that's a wage reopener, and we're still working on that. The retirement rate increases and any other staffing changes that might be needed. We've gone over this chart before, and this chart has now changed because we have a budget. So some of the things I do want to point out as we were looking a little bit this afternoon, because we didn't have a lot of great information. 31AA I have talked about a couple of times, saying great news. It was in all 3 branches of the government. It's now, I think in the final, has been reduced by 98%. So that's going to be something we're going to have to take a hard look at. 31A looks like it stayed stable. It went up just a little bit for us. I think we were looking at went up about $150,000, and it's a $1 million grant currently. Universal breakfast and lunch were still in there, fully funded. So that's also good news. So it's kind of where we're at right now, because the foundation allowance, which we know now, is flat. It's 0 for public schools. So I just kind of wanted to talk about some of the changes that happened today. One of the things that did happen, it looks like the MIPSERV that we've been talking about, which was 7%, might have been reduced to 5.7. So I believe that's about $475 a pupil that we will receive there. So I would say, from the little bit that I've kind of been able to review, the $475 per pupil we might receive from the MIPSERVs, the foundation allowance of $241 that we were expecting but not getting is now 0, and then perhaps a $200 per student loss in 31AA. I still think financially probably in the same spot. They probably kind of traded one thing up for another, is kind of how I'm looking at it at this point without some additional information. So just to kind of think about how this went, I think that we're still going to land in these same places. Yes. Correct. $241. Yes.
Can you explain for people like MIPSers, 31A, 31AA? Can you?
I'm so sorry, right? So MIP serves is our retirement plan for the employees of Royal Oak Schools, and that is through the state of Michigan. We pay a certain percentage on every payroll dollar. The portion that we're talking about now, the 5.7% that we potentially are going to get back, like I said, I haven't read all the details of the governor's or the budget that was signed by the governor today, is the part specifically about post-retirement benefits is fully funded, and some of those dollars will go back to schools. So that's the 5.7%, which has been equated, I believe, to about $475 a pupil. 31AA is the grant that we receive right now. I believe it's $1.2 million, and it's specifically for mental health and school safety. 31A is for at-risk students, and that's also roughly $1 million that we receive each year. You're welcome. Sorry, we do alphabet soup quite often, so that's always difficult. I'm sorry. We talk about that all day long. So the final amendment for the general fund for the 23-24 school year is a structural deficit of $657,000. Like I said, there were some things that we know. We got final numbers. They came in, final revenues, and then certainly final tuition on a variety of things. So I know that some things have settled, so I was able to reduce the budget a little bit to $657,000. And then moving forward, also with more information, I think we were just over 3.8 million for next year. Now we're just under $3.8 million for the 24-25 school year. And like I said, I think that the buckets of the revenue are going to kind of shift, but I think it will be similar in the end. But of course, as we learn more information, we will share that with you. Any questions on the general fund before I move on? Okay. The Community Service Fund houses the Early Childhood Center, so GSRP, tuition preschool, latchkey, all of those items, along with Churchill Community High School. That fund gets balanced out to zero, basically because our foundation allowance for the students at Churchill and any special ed foundation allowance we receive out of the ECC all goes into the general fund, so we balance that to zero each year. So our final numbers for 23-24 are $3.2 million, and then for 24-25 is just over $3 million. The Food Service Fund, which I work with Mike Jacobs, our food service manager on that budget, is both structural deficit for 23-24 of $367,000 and 24-25 of $306,000. Remember that we plan these structural deficits. These are for work like in the current school year. Royal Oak High School got a new loading dock coming this summer. Keller and Adams are receiving new kitchens. The equipment goes into the food service fund. We have excess fund balance, and we are to maintain 3 months of operating income. So these are planned structural deficits to be able to use that, those fund balances to stay in compliance with the federal regulations. Yes.
Question. Since we had the public comment on our green initiatives, from a budgetary perspective, the initiatives that Mike presented to the team last week, which budget do those come out of?
They come out of the food service fund.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Right, so the compostable lunch trays, he talked a little bit about the compostable boats for the high school. He also has that picked up and taken, I believe, out into Milford or Howell area. So there's some other perhaps instructional programs that can go along with that as well. The Student Activity Fund a couple years ago became one of our mandated funds that we had to pass budgets for. It is all of the accounts that are student related, like student council, the soccer team. There's hundreds of these accounts, but they have to follow the same rules and regulations of all the other funds of the district. One of those being we have to have a budget for them. So they have gone up the amount that goes in and out each year. So we're at $1.5 million revenue and expenses for the Student Activity Fund. Did you want to approve those four, which would be 5.3.1 and 5.3.3 now, or did you want me to go ahead with the remaining 6 funds and do all 3 at the same time? Okay. Like I said, the rest of these we do approve them, but these are not legally obligated to be approved, but we do review them. These also are reviewed a little differently. Property maintenance, the bond fund, the building site sinking fund, because each and every project's brought to you. We talk about it. Every project goes through board approval. So as we run through this. So the debt fund is specific to our 2 obligations. We have 2018 bond and 2020 bonds. This is specific tax that's levied to pay the principal and interest on all the bonds. The levy is set or helped set with our financial advisors, PFM. We have a fund balance increase of $241,000 for 23-24 and $538,000 for 24-25. The 2012 sinking fund, this is the last year. We did not collect any tax revenue this year. The new 2022 sinking fund did, but these are the remaining expenditures out of that 2012 fund. Remember, we kept them very separate because the uses in the new one were different than the old one. The old one was construction only. The new one includes that use of instructional technology. So this is the remaining 2012 sinking fund. The 22 sinking fund, we have a increase in fund balance of $627,000 this year, and then $687,000 next year. And those uses of funds carry from year to year. So you'll find that balance plus the new revenue gets added into the next year. That's why you see it go up from the revenue from 3.7 million to 3.5. It's not because the taxes increase that much. It includes that fund balance into our revenues because we have that ability to keep spending. So it looks a little bit different than the other funds. Property maintenance was revenue that we collected from the sale of property many years ago now. So we've used a little bit of that this year. 536,000 of that was used this year. So that will leave a fund balance in the property maintenance of 3.7 million. And we use 100,000 each year because just as a start for each year. Bond series number 2, also finishing that out this year. Now, I just want to kind of point out that we do have purchase orders for the entire $2.9 million of remaining bond funds that we have because we're currently doing that work at Adams and Keller. It will not all be completed tomorrow. So what will happen is anything that's remaining, we will pay for work through tomorrow. I will open those purchase orders in the next year. So we will have one more budget round with this next summer. It will look like that 2012 sinking fund completing all that work. And then the technology fund, we don't use a whole lot and nothing has happened this year. So the revenue is just the remaining fund balance from year to year. At this point, we don't have anything planned for it. And a lot of times that's our savings from E-rate when we purchase technology items that way. So those are all of the district funds. There are 10 of them this year. Are there any questions? All right.
Shall we work through your amendments here?
Please.
Item 5.3.1, budget amendments for 23-24 budgets. Can I have a recommendation, please? Ms. Usinski?
Be it resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the following 2023-2024 budget amendments: General Fund, Community Service Fund, Food Service Fund, and Student Activity Fund as presented.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Mrs. Alexander, can we have a roll call, please?
I will vote yes. Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5.3.2, ancillary 23-24 final budgets and 2024-25 budget approvals. Can I have a recommendation, please? Mrs. Anderson?
I will make that resolution in a second. I want to thank you and your team. You have been doing a tremendous, tremendous amount of work, and I'm sure today was a mad scramble. So we appreciate you. So thank you, and thank you. And everybody else. And I also want to mention to people who are watching this, we do go over all of these things, many at great length in facilities and finance meetings that we have monthly. Public's invited. We'd love to have more people join us. So, but just to let you know that we are cognizant of many of these, though the budget today was kind of a surprise, but I will make this. The meetings are generally the first Thursday of the month here. However, in July, it'll be, I believe, 5:30, July 11th, which is the day of our next regular board meeting, because July 4th, we're dedicated, but we're not coming here on July 4th. So, but that'll be at 5:30 before the next regular board meeting, but generally 6 p.m. the first Thursday of the month here in this room. Recommendation, resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the projected final 2023-24 and proposed preliminary 2024-25 for the following ancillary funds: debt funds, property maintenance, building and site and sinking, 2023 and 2024, bond series number 2, and technology fund as presented.
Can I have a second? Mrs. Cook? Can we have a roll call?
Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee, oh my gosh, Jasinski? I was thinking, where do I end? Okay, I end with me. I will vote yes, and the motion passes.
Happens to all of us. It's okay. Item 5.3.3, budget adoption for the 24-25 budgets. Actually, one more. So just, I think, as you demonstrated today, how we do a budget amendment for the 23-24 year. So knowing that we're approving this budget today, we anticipate a very soon to be budget amendment earlier in the year, perhaps, than we typically would.
Perhaps it'll depend on if it changes anything significant enough that we feel that we need to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Jaworski?
Be resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the following 2024-2025 budgets: the General Fund, Community Service Fund, Food Service Fund, and Student Activity Fund as presented.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Mrs. Alexander, can we have a roll call, please? Oh, we have a question. Mrs. Cook?
That's correct. No, there's no problem with that. Because it's all in totals, it's perfectly fine that the budget that we're passing, like I said, if there's anything significant, we will be able to do an amendment right away. But we are in good faith using information that we believed at the time.
Thank you. Roll call.
Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank
I have
you.
one more item
Yes, I
for
see.
your, okay. 5.3.4 on tonight's agenda is a tennis court repair contract award. We have talked many times at Finance and Facilities about the need to repair some items out at the tennis courts. We have found a solution that we think is going to work, so we would like the opportunity to use that solution on 4 of the 8 courts. tonight's award is also accepting the alternate, so instead of doing the two, we're gonna do 4. And so there was a little bit of savings because the contractor would already be out there, so the alternate was a little less than than doing 2. Do you have any questions about that?
No, those tennis courts is all I can say.
We appreciate you doing this evening because we know that the contractor can get this work completed, I believe, before August 9th.
Thank you. Can we have a recommendation, please? Mrs. Cook?
Resolved that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to finalize and sign a contract with Laser Sports Surfacing in the amount of $76,800. This award includes the base bid and alternate number 1.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
This motion passes as well.
Item number 6, public comment. The same rules apply as before. None? Okay. Seeing none, item 7, board comments and liaisons. Anybody? Mrs. Anderson?
I do want to thank everybody who came to the golf outing on Monday. We had beautiful weather at Metamora as opposed to rain, wind, sleet. I don't know what we've had in previous years, but it was a beautiful day, and the Royal Oak Schools Foundation was very happy with how everything went. And we want to thank Ms. Van Heitzma for the delicious cookies.
Thank you. And again, just to reiterate, thank you, Mrs. Abella, and to your team for the challenging budget years, we would call it, I guess. Every year is a challenging budget year. But, you know, and we look forward to seeing what the impact is once you have all those numbers and can work through them. So we appreciate our, you know, conservative approach when we do the base budget, assuming flatline student enrollment and so forth. So I think that's really important, and I think that's very conservative, and I think that's makes me more comfortable as well. And I also like to see new hires as our alumni from our Royal Oak High School, so that's always nice to see. Yeah, so seeing nothing else, we're all good. We're adjourned. Thank you.